Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I was actually going to review for you was Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, and that review will be coming this week. Though what I want to talk about is the Apple television show Wolfwalkers, which the Hollywood Reporter allowed me to have an early sneak peek at, and I'd like to thank them for that. And I didn't go into this expecting one of the best werewolf movies that I've ever seen, but it really is. And let's be clear about something. This is a werewolf story, and it is animation, and I'll admit right off the bat, I don't tend to watch movies with animation. It's not that I don't like them. I respect what goes into them, and it is an art form in and of itself. Though it tends not to be a thing I seek out. If I happen to be sitting down and whatever were to come on, I would probably watch it, but I don't tend to seek it out. And so, going in, I didn't know what Wolfwalkers actually was. And like with other things I've reviewed, I oftentimes will not deep dive into what it is, deliberately. Because when you do that, you take away the surprise. You take away a lot of things that will make the review more interesting. So as I said, I didn't do that with Wolfwalkers. And I'm really glad I didn't. It's a beautiful story. And I'm not going to give away anything in the way of spoilers. Though as a cartoon, you would think it's for children, and there's a point to be made for that. But at the same time, it's not only beautiful, hand-drawn, for the most part, animation, it manages to teach you things, which is something a lot of children's programming doesn't really do, outside of Sesame Street and things of that nature. For instance, did you know that there were once wolves in Ireland and Scotland? They went extinct, I believe, sometime in the 18th century, as in hunted down by humans. But wolves existed in those places, and the story revolves around the period when they did. It revolves around this wolf hunter, voiced by Sean Bean, by the way, and his daughter, who wants to be like her father so much. And she wants to go out with him on a hunt for wolves. And she thinks of wolves as evil, terrible things, and they're the enemy, and they must be destroyed. Eventually she sneaks out of the village and follows her father. And that's when you have her meet these wolves. And she leads with her fear, and they seemingly respond accordingly. But when she lets that go, it becomes this beautiful thing. And to my point earlier, this is so rich thematically. There is so much going on with this, I don't even want to call it a cartoon, with this animation, that it's kind of remarkable to watch, to be totally honest with you. And if you saw my review for We Can Be Heroes, the Robert Rodriguez film currently on Netflix, I wasn't very complimentary to it. Things like this, things like Wolfwalkers is why. It's so rich in terms of the story it's telling. It's not patronizing. It has stakes. The characters are very well drawn, and they're interesting to look at, which, as I said, is hand-drawn and very painterly and delicate at times and beautiful. But the story itself is so rich and so kind and so harrowing even at times. This is what programming for children at its best should do. Now obviously everything shouldn't be like this, because if that were the case, it would get very boring very quickly. But the thing is, while you don't want everything to be like this, the problem is very few things, animation-wise, are like this. And that's a pity. Growing up, I remember animation like this. Not necessarily the stylistic, though that was there too. Just It tried to tell stories, and it had risks involved, and there were stakes to those stories. It's really beautiful to see that. And this is premiering on Apple TV. And Apple TV seems to be aiming for a certain quality of product. And this is just beautiful. It's great. And I mentioned the animation. It is, as I said, hand-drawn. But the thing is, it's very evocative of things you've seen before. For instance, it reminded me somewhat of earlier cartoons I've seen, but also, oddly enough, the work of Jack Kirby, which is to say it's very angular and very odd, and even the work of Picasso, for God's sakes. There's a shot of a crowd in this cartoon, and it's so Picasso-esque in terms of the way the faces look. It's just fascinating. And that's what impresses me so much about this. There's so much to it. There's so many layers to it. Never mind, it's a story well told. It's beautiful, it's interesting, and it challenges you. And it just doesn't choke you up. As in fighting back tears, you're made of stronger stuff than I am. Because this had me at the verge of bawling at times. It is that beautiful. It's that well done. The stakes are real. It's just beautiful. Now, what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. And as I mentioned earlier, look forward to a review of Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor coming this week. Peace.